The world's gone to hell. The infected have taken over 80% of the US, and the rest of us have either gotten comfortable in communities or traded in our souls, taking chances in the wild. The wild is anywhere outside the few scattered quarantine zones where anything goes for survival. Whether it be betrayal, abandonment, or murder, it's a natural food chain where no one is held accountable for their worst or evilest actions. The country's now a cesspool where cruel acts are rewarded by another day of survival or the occasional indulgence. In the middle of a hot summer day, I found myself running into a suburb outside of Kansas City, populated by a large horde of the infected. By my count, they numbered in the 40s. I managed to navigate past most of them, but as I neared a side door of some random house, I tripped over a toy set, and the horde were alerted. The door was unlocked, so I opened it and ran inside before locking it and placing my weight on the other end. Thump, thump, thump. More infected hit the door with each thud, and then something odd happened. It stopped. A similar thump struck from across the house, and I suddenly became aware that I wasn't the only one out there, or holding the infected out. I ran from the kitchen and across the living room to find a woman by the front door in the exact same position as I was in. I recognized her. It was my ex-girlfriend before the pandemic. That special ex that they call the One. Cleo? She got up from the door as it quieted down from the other side, more embarrassed to answer me than to face the other side of that door. "Hi, Mark," she said with a bothered tone. We both nearly just died, hadn't seen each other in years, and she still started with a sarcastic tone. "Are you okay?" I asked, ignoring the tone. "Yeah, I'm clean. The fuckers are quick, but I managed to smoke them to the door once I had open space. Those old track star reflexes have been kicking in," she flexed, tapping her right thigh. "That was risky." Yes, it was, but here I am. Her arrogance annoyed me a little, but she was right. Here she was. By nightfall, we had finished checking the house for any unwanted guests, and the hordes outside had dispersed. The house was a decent size with 2 bathrooms and 3 bedrooms. The front door led to a foyer with steps and a hallway into the kitchen. Nearly every inch of every room was covered, with pictures of a family of 3, 2 parents and 1 teenage daughter. One of the bedrooms was turned into a nursery, implying they were expecting a second child. I told myself the family got to enjoy the birth of the baby, and were probably in a safe zone, but part of me knew better. Looking out one of the hallway windows upstairs, I noticed the numbers of the infected still swelled the suburban street, but they were wandering around aimlessly. When they have no objects of aggression, they return to their state of mindless idiots, until triggered by the next stimulation. "What do you have on you?" I asked, walking down the steps back to Cleo. "I just got a few protein bars and a canteen of water." "Well, that's more than me," she stated. "I just got a full canteen. I was hoping there was something in here." "Wait, so you were running from the infected on an empty stomach?" "Yes, it gives me an edge." "What edge?" "The same one that keeps them going. Pure survival. That's what I tap into as well." "Wow. It works. It brought me here." "That it did, and I'm glad. It's good to see you." "You too, Mark." Cleo and I talked for hours, sharing our journeys until about midnight before she walked over to a minibar in the dining room. "What you drinking?" she asked. "I'll double what you're having." I stamped over, trying to sound macho. "Double whiskey it is," Cleo exclaimed. "With a lemon, if memory serves me correctly." Bullseye. I never miss, Tiger. You know that. We drank and reminisced about the times together until before we knew it, we were face to face, drunk and hot. I scooped her up and brought her to the bedroom before throwing her on the bed and tearing off her clothes like a savage. She cheered as I got her completely naked and began worshipping her every curve. We then intertwined in a knot of euphoria for the next hour, one of many we used to experience in happier times. "I see it's still magic," she said, rolling off me exhausted to the other side of the bed. "It wasn't magic enough to keep you," I exclaimed. "Because I'm magic too," Cleo jabbed, not missing a beat. I chuckled, then changed the subject. "Are you scared?" I asked, hoping to crack her armor and reach the person who could acknowledge the dilemma. "Yes, I am. By my count, we got 80 outside, 40 from my door and about the same from yours. They still circle the house, but the reason to rush the house is gone, for now. Of course I'm scared." "Good. Then we can do this." She nodded quietly, with fear in her eyes. "We're going to have to make a run for it when we leave here," she began. "Navigating through that number will be tough, but we have a shot if we trek through the houses instead of the street." "I agree. It could be days or weeks before they move on, and this house isn't fortified enough to last it out. If one manages to get in, the rest will follow, and fast. Our best bet is to find a house with supplies while we house trek, and wait them out there. Keep moving or fortify somewhere safe." "Exactly. Hey, remember that time we took that skiing trip to Aspen, and the blizzard hit?" Cleo asked, attempting to switch to a more positive topic. "When we got stuck with Ines and her snobby friends in the cabin. How could I forget?" I laughed. "God, they were terrible. They were like mindless two-faced consumer sponges. Every word out of their mouth was about something they bought or gossip. I couldn't take it." "Yeah, they were pretty bad. Remember the excuse we made to get out of there?" "Yes," she recalled dramatically, rubbing her nose and sniffing loudly. "I'm sorry guys, but Cleo is allergic to small spaces." I began imitating the past role. "I'm going to have to get her back to our cabin in this blizzard before she breaks out in hives." Looking back, the blizzard was still the better choice. It was, and it was worth the risk. Once we made it back trudging through the snow, our cabin was heaven. "Heaven," Cleo repeated, sighing. "You were always my savior. I just wish I realized that back then. You were mine too, just in different ways. You always had this uncanny ability to leap when I couldn't. And let's not beat up ourselves about the past now. Yeah, we fucked it back then, but we survived the pandemic and found each other again. This world's taken so much, but it gave us some time back. So let's enjoy it together, as long as we can." She smiled at me and nodded. I kissed her again and pulled her to my chest so that we could rest in the memory. "Let's get some sleep," I directed. "We might need the energy tomorrow." The next morning, I stirred with sunlight beaming in my face. Turning over, I realized that Cleo was gone from the bed. I shot up and into the hallway, on full alert. Survival mode activated again. Frantically, I made my way down the top floor hall before stumbling upon Cleo standing quietly in the middle of the nursery. Looking over her shoulder, I could see that she was looking down at a small picture of the family. "They were beautiful," she said, sensing my presence at the door. "They are beautiful," I corrected. "Yes, are," she reassured meekly. "Mark, what do you think we would have had if none of this infected stuff happened?" she asked, still looking at the photo. "Hard to say. We had our issues, but I think we would have gotten to the family thing, eventually. Do you think we would have been happy?" She turned around, tears in her eyes waiting for a reply. Noticeably, my eyes swelled as well, meeting hers. She stared at me for the longest seconds of my life, before nodding in acknowledgement. I didn't have any words. We both knew there wasn't room in this world for that kind of thinking anymore. A few moments later, a loud whistle pierced through the house from the kitchen. Cleo dropped the photo, and before it could hit the floor, we were out the room and down the steps. Once we got to the kitchen, I found the source of the sound. It was the tea Cleo was making in a kettle on a portable electric stove. She must have forgotten she put it on while in the nursery, with it now piercing through the house and outside. I ran over to the kettle, placing my hand over the burning steam and attempting to smother the whistle before pouring the scalding water into the sink. I held down a scream, my fear masking the pain. Cleo stood in the middle of the kitchen, stuck and in shock. I'm sorry, she cried out, still emotional. It's okay. Thank you. It would have been nice, I said, trying to comfort her. Bang! There was a loud thud at the side door, followed by a few more. Bangs from the front door joined in as well. The infected had heard the whistle. We're going to have to leave now, Cleo said, turning her apocalypse mode back on. They're at both doors, and from the sounds of them, it's big numbers. I exhaled, looking at the floor, strategizing in my head for a moment, before finding the courage to meet her eyes. We're going to have to split up. Me out this door, and you out the front. It's our only chance of breaking up the mob. I'll lead them south, or you make your way north. Stick to the houses like we discussed. I'm not leaving you, she proclaimed. And I'm not leaving you. Once I'm sure I shook them, I'll make my way back around and follow your course north through the houses. I'll be a day or two behind, but I'll eventually catch up. Eventually, she smirked, half sarcastic and half assured. We both took off towards our doors and pushed them against the infected on each side. Immediately, as I got mine a little open, I was greeted with hands and growls clawing their way inside. I kicked the door open more with all my might, pushing back the horde and providing me a route for a few seconds. I took off on the side flank of the mob, all biting and scratching as I created distance before they could adjust. You got this, Cleo. I know you made it out too. After running for several minutes, I ducked down and rested with my back to a car on the side of the road. A few scattered groups of the horde darted past down the street and out of sight. I observed a few infected still lingering, just enough to sneak by heading back north to Cleo. Pop! Up the street north, there was a distant sound of a gunshot. Too close and soon to be a new player, so I instinctively knew it was Cleo. She had made it out the house. There was hope. You would be the one to hide a gun, I chuckled to myself. Just conserve the ammo. Use it when cornered only, I instructed, as if she could hear me. A sharp pain then suddenly struck my left arm. Panicking, I rolled up my shirt sleeve, confirming my fear. On my forearm there were 3 scratches, deep, bleeding, and infected. Figures, I confessed, covering the wounds back up with my sleeve. I thought of Cleo making it north and managed a light smile. She was always cleverer and more resourceful than me. She'd be alright. After taking a deep breath, I get to my feet and start pounding on the car, creating a loud ruckus. All the lingering infected turn their attention in pursuit, and I run off again. Still heading south. You got this, love. You'll make it for the both of us. You'll find somewhere to rest. You'll eat well and sleep peacefully. In the morning, you wake up safely and continue until you get to a safe zone. Then you'll stay and live the rest of your years in comfort. You can do it. As my lungs give out from running, and I collapse to my knees, I turn around to see a large number of infected not far behind. Their screams and yells filled the street as their horribly deformed faces came into view, closer and closer. But I'm done running. I'll catch up to you soon, Cleo. Until then, take care until we see each other again. Eventually.